Rockstar really do like to make us work for these pronunciations, don't they? So this, I think, is the Toundra Panther. Or, do you know what? The Tundra Panther, or Panthier, whatever you want to call it, it's that. And this is one of the GTA Online weekly update offers for this week. And it's been a difficult one because I've never owned this car before, and I've heard that it's absolutely awful and that you should never buy it. But the problem is, I think it looks really nice. I mean, obviously, not with the customization I've done on it. We'll come to that in a second. But this is based on the real life Alpine A110, which is a fabulous looking car. It's kind of a competitor to the Porsche Boxster in real life, which is quite good because in the game this car is very, very similar to the Fister Growler. So this is very much mirroring real life. In real life, the Alpine A110 is a slightly more original, slightly cooler, but not quite as good version of the Boxster. Whereas in the game, the Panther, whatever, is a slightly more original, slightly cooler, but less good version of the Growler. But why is it less good? Well, let's start with this hideous customization that I've done. And this is not me saying that the customization is poor. It's, for a relatively modern vehicle, there's actually quite a lot. I could definitely argue that the customization for this car is really good. There are lots and lots of options. But the problem I found is that quite a lot of the options didn't really make it look any better. It is a pretty car out of the box. That definitely, I can definitely agree with that. It's a pretty car out of the box. But something about the customizations, it was a bit like the RT3000 for me. I just couldn't get it to work. So I've gone back to my roots and I've gone for, well, blue and orange, because I used to paint everything blue and orange, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be able to get some sort of racer kind of thing going here. So customization wise, there is a lot there, but I struggled to get something that I was, truly happy with. But that's not the biggest problem with this car. The biggest problem you just saw, and that is the handling. We'll come to the speed in a second, but the handling on this thing, and it took a few goes at the lap because I was actually trying to figure out what was wrong with the handling, because it's not that the handling is bad. Around town the handling is actually okay, it's actually quite nice, but it does this random thing where every now and then, I mean, maybe it's because it's based on a French car, every now and then it just decides, do you know what, I cannot be bothered, and it just gives up the grip. And I think that is central to what I found wrong with the handling. It's not so much the handling, it's the downforce. And I think it's another one of those cars that has reasonable handling, but not as much downforce as you think. So when you're driving through the city, it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security because you don't need that much downforce. And then as soon as you get onto the freeway and you're going around at full speed, at full chart, that's when the lack of downforce bites you, and you will find that you will randomly lose control all over the place, just because you'll go into a corner thinking it's going to stick, and it looks like it's going to stick, and the feedback tells you that it's going to stick, and then it doesn't stick, and you crash into a hedge or the side of a bridge. Now, before we go off and test the top speed, there is an absolutely perfect example of that just around this corner up here. So as you can see, around this section it seems really good, but then all of a sudden just a waft of oversteer out of nowhere, and it doesn't make it bad, it makes it unpredictable. I think that's the problem with this car. It's not consistent in how it handles. So some corners are fine, some are horrific, and then some seem really good. It's just really, really inconsistent throughout. Right, so let's head off and go and have a look at the top speed of this thing. And here we are at the top speed test. So as ever, I've got the measured mile, I've got the counter in white, and I've got my calculation for top speed in green. So what will happen is, as we cover the mile, it will look at the speed it's taken to travel the distance so far, and then that will give us an average top speed through traffic. Now this one did go slightly better than I was expecting, but still, you know, you're not gonna say it's fast, but you know, 117 could have been an awful lot worse. So it's about this time of the lap where I start looking at final thoughts and whether I would recommend this. So, as with so many of my recommendations, there's always a big caveat about what point you're at in the game, because this isn't a cheap car, but it is on offer. It's normally over 2 million, so you can pick this up this week for, I think it was about 1.5 million I paid for this one. And if you are collecting, and if you do a better job of the customization than me, then I have to say, this is a very pretty car. It does look really nice, and there are a lot of garages that this will sit in and will look just really, really nice and be a good part of a collection. But in terms of the drive, I just found it just not enjoyable to drive. There are definite comparisons to the Growler, but the Growler's just so much better. So if you want a Growler, get a Growler. I can't believe how many times I'm saying Growler. Growler. But in terms of this one, yes, it's a decent offer. It's a pretty car. I think, especially if you're a little bit skint after the DLC, I think this is probably one to pass. But here's the time it did, which for a £2 million car, 9.5 minutes, is a pretty goddamn terrible time. I mean, that is a slow car, and most of that time loss comes from the terrible handling and the inconsistent handling. So yeah, summary, very pretty, but a bit crap. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next one.